It is 4:30. Okay, we call this Washington County Board of Education meeting to order. After a moment of silence, ask Ms. Buchanan to lead us in the pledge again.
No problem. Rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Flannery, you got this, or Brad Hale?
I'll start it. First, I want to welcome the new superintendent, Dr. Boyd, back here. We spent some quality time today. I was telling him all about every one of you.
Oh, God! I didn't take long.
And at this time, I'll turn it over to CFO Brad Hale, who will start by telling you the bad news and then the worst news. Brad? Is he around there?
He's still downstairs.
Tino is having a meeting.
Yeah,
He's been working on it for 2 weeks.
his office trying to get something, so he ain't here yet.
I guess we'll take a break until he shows up. Well, you do have in front of you a single piece of paper that shows what we colloquially call the wish list. And just start gazing over that. This is a compendium of those things that each of you have reached out about, the principal, supervisors. I think my name's on there.
I had a few last minute updates, so we only have a few minutes. All right, so.
Any way you can make that bigger, honey? Us old people can't see.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, now what, I thought maybe it'd be her, I'm sorry I called you.
And that's what this is? He's gonna run it
It
today.
should be coming from my screen here. Okay, I'm going to take off this mask. Yeah, we can blow that up. So to start off budget season, let me first, just the documents that we have two that we'll go over tonight. One is, sometimes it's called the wish list, but I call it budget change list. That'll be the one sheet of paper that you have in front of you. We'll blow this up, but the top part, and this is format as you'll remember from previous years, is what we call have-to items. The only exception to that is your pay increases. So you'll have the first column that's a step-only increase that is required. Then you will have the 1%, 2%, and 3% option. I can go higher than 3, but I don't, I assume there's not a reason to, but if you all tell me that you want me to put a 4% option on there, I can. But the top section, that's going to happen regardless, other than the potential pay increase. The bottom part of this is what I have so far as requests for potential additions to the FY22 budget. Before we get into that, though, let me just briefly go over the next document. And there's one document that you're used to seeing you don't have yet, and that is because we do not have revenue projections, and so there's no point in doing that yet. But this narrative, this is the one that you approved last year. So this type of format, and you can see once we get the revenue projections, I'll be able to fill in the narrative and have options for step 1%, 2%, 3%, and in here. But we'll bring our total expenses here, and then we'll have the revenue projections for your big three revenue sources: property tax, sales tax, and DP. And then we'll have this, if you remember last year, this amount of $3,440,534 was the budgeted amount that comes from fund balance because of a deficit. The revenues just didn't, the projected revenues didn't equal the expenses. So that number will be on topic going forward. Now, we did have a budget amendment where we took this up to about $3.94 million here recently. So, but that was the original budget. This was the must-have items that happened last year. We went with the 1% pay increase, and then the other items you see. This is what made the additional request on the bottom. So once we get to near the end of March, I'll be able to put this document together because I'll have accurate revenue projections from the state on BEP, which is around 51% of our funding, and then myself and the county finance director, Mr. Meredith, will lock down the property tax. We have budgeted sales, well, we have sales tax and real data for the last 12 months, which I'm going to argue that we should use that for budget projections for next year. Not increasing that, but just real data with what we've actually received. Which, if we do that, that's going to be an over $1 million increase to the budget revenue for sales tax. If you remember, we didn't do any budgeted increase last year for sales tax. We're in the first 7 months of the year tracking $737,000 better than last year for those same 7 months in sales tax. So that's helped our revenue out tremendously. I will for now exit out of this narrative, just knowing that that'll be coming once we get the revenue projections in. So the other document that you have is a detailed list of the budget itself. The actual budget document, there'll be 9 pages. Some of you might need a magnifying glass for some of that, but I played with the font best I could there to get it to where it's readable. So this document is what you'll have. Now you'll notice the first 2 pages, all you have is numbers in the shaded area, which is the budget that's in effect right now. That's the latest budget amendment. You don't have the revenue numbers because we don't have those locked down yet. Now I do have estimates on my side, but nothing that we put on here yet. So starting at page 2, or excuse me, page 3 of this document, you will have all those columns full. So the first column, after to the right of the shaded column, is going to be your step increases only, 1%, 2%, 3% raise. So you have 4 options, and this is with the expenses that we know now. None of the requested items on the bottom of this first page are included in those numbers yet. The top section is included in these numbers. So those have to numbers with the except, well, when you have the step increase 1, 2, 3%, those top items for the salary expenses are in there. So everything on top's in there, nothing on the bottom is in those numbers yet. So that really gets to the as far as the format that we're looking at now. And then at your request, one last thing is I'll put on here is, of course, the bottom of page 9, the last page is going to give your total expense. It would be prudent to go there now, page 9. You can see the budget that we have that's in effect is just over $75 million for the general budget. Now, the step increase only, you'll notice that, and this is rare that this happens, but the overall expense is only $73,800,000, so it actually went down when you're looking at step only, and that is because we had some big ticket items that are in this year's budget that do not carry over. I can show you what those are as well too. Textbooks, of course, we'll get over what's requested, get on to what's requested this year. But if you remembered, we had a significant budget increase last year for textbooks. With the requests I've got now, that would be a $535,000 reduction to last year's budget. There's a series of grants that were attained this year in the general budget. They're not guaranteed for next year, so we pull them out, and then if we get them, we put them back in next year on amendment. CTE equipment, you'll remember you put $250,000 in there. That does not carry over. It is up to you as a board if you want to put more funding, but as of right now, that $250,000 would not carry over. We had grade elementary school gym floor repair. We had scoreboards that we bought. That's about $205,000. Those are expenses that will not carry forward in next year's budget. We had David Crockett High School dishwasher, which a lot of that was paid by the grant, but we still had to increase the expense in the budget to cover that. And $500,000 in ionization units, which we think is going to be paid by ESSER funds, but we still made that money available. Unless the board chooses differently, that won't carry forward. So that's nearly $600,000. Lottery for education grants, $50,000 this year. If we get that next year, we'll put it back in, but we don't know yet. So all in all, that's about 1.6, on just south of 1.7 million. It can come out of the budget expense for next year unless you choose otherwise. That's why you saw a reduction in actual expenses, even with the step increase. With that step increase, it's a little over $400,000 impact, so you're going to have that regardless. But that is the reason that you see a decrease in the overall expenses right now. So with that being said, I'll leave it up to you as the board as to what you want to start going through. If you want to discuss any of the items that are requested, additional items, or however you want to do this, that's an overview of what we have in front of us, what information we have available right now. I do have some revenue projections. They're not solid yet, so I didn't put them on here yet. The biggest one is the BEP. That's over 51% of our funding. We won't know that until around the third week, somewhere into that third week most likely. It's around March 20th to the 25th range when we probably get the first estimate from the state. That's going to be a very big deciding factor.
When do we have to vote on this?
You have
Approve
to
it.
have a budget down to the courthouse May the
We
1st.
don't
May
know
first.
what type of a race the state will, at this point, we don't know, do we?
Well, you've just heard talk. There's been a lot of talk about a 4% increase in certified staff. We just have to realize what that really means. What that means is they increase the base number in the BEP formula for average certified staff by 4%, but they only fund. I can actually. This is probably
66%.
Yeah, and this is probably good for me to just pull this up because this will explain two aspects of that. I'm going to go to last year's most recent one that we got. We did get a revision in January for insurance. So this is the BEP, the latest one for Washington County, came in at $36,546,000. Now, if you remember, we were budgeted up there around $36,900,000 plus last year because when we did our budget, that's what we were told we were going to get. But by the time the July BEP came out, it got cut by $420,000 due to COVID. So, and we had already passed the budget, so, but that's why there's a variance. But 36,546. Now we have an instructional salaries component of this BEP, which is the biggest part. Funnel ends up being $16,802,000. When we go over to this formula sheet, this is the section for instructional salaries. All I will call your attention to is this number, $48,330. For the purpose of this BEP formula, that is the amount used for the full-time employees for certified staff. You'll notice this number above it, 531.87. So the state funds in our BEP formula just under 532 certified staff at an average salary of $48,330. We have around 610, 612 approximately. That's not uncommon. In fact, the most recent call I had with Ms. Dursky out of Nashville with all the financial leads for systems said there's only one or two systems in the state where it actually funds every certified staff position you have. So that in itself is not uncommon. It's normal. So, but what happens is they will up this number by 4%. But it's only, in this case, all things equal, for 532 staff members, not the full 612. And they cover 65.36% of that 4%. So it would be up to the county to fund that additional 34.64%. To be able
And
to
that
match.
figure is how much?
Which figure now?
The other 34% of the employees.
For this number, well, it would be the difference between the 25 million and the 16 million, so you're talking roughly $9 million, the way this formula works. So the full amount would be to fund 25,705,000 of that, but the state funds 65% of that, which means they'll fund 16,802,000. So hypothetically, the other part of that would be roughly that $9 million variance.
Does our, if you take our certified staff, Brad, and divide it, total salaries, or where do we stack up compared to the BEP
Very
average?
close to that 48 on just gross salaries alone.
Well, but that's, yeah, and that is just gross salaries, because the benefits are
It
taken
is,
out. Okay.
correct. Very close to that. When I take the average of all, in fact, that's the number that, I'm not saying 48,330, but it's in that 48,000 range that I used last year.
And that's where we got caught is that where we got caught a few years ago when we did the bonus?
That's correct. So we did a bonus, we didn't do a pay increase, and what happens is this line of the BEP down here, now you'll notice this one says 0. We had one year before last that said $400,000. When you do a bonus or a one-time incentive and you don't up the pay scale for the purpose of this BEP formula, it does not raise your average salary. Therefore, you're going to pay it now, you're going to pay it later, because what happened is the year we had 400,000 sitting here, you were absolutely obligated as a board to raise the certified staff pay scale as a whole by $400,000, period. So that's the negative part of just doing one time, if you want to call it bonuses, and not raising at least the certified pay scale. Now, this is a little different than what we've just done this month, because that was additional funding from the state that was one time, so that's a different scenario, because we really did get benefit from that, and the legislature, the Tennessee General Assembly stated that's what it was to be used for.
So would we get in trouble if we decided to give the rest of the people a bonus at the same amount that what we give the others?
The state says you can do what you choose with that. It's just you got to pay for it as a board out of either your fund balance or cut it somewhere else out of the budget.
We have to pay for that.
Yeah, the state.
Well, I understand that, but we got certified teachers or certified employees got, what was the bonus?
$470 before taxes.
All right, so if we done that to everybody as a bonus,
Right.
can that be done?
It's around $283,000 that the board would just have to decide.
No pay increase, no nothing, unless we're getting money from, which we don't know, right? We don't know if we're getting 1%, 2%, or 3% from the state, right?
Right now, we do not know on next year's BEP yet what the final outcome will be.
Bonuses are nice, but they don't really go into their salary.
I
You don't
understand
have-
that, I
Okay,
understand that.
I'm just
I know.
saying.
It's not a reoccurring funds, I understand that. But is this the year to give a raise? I mean, is this the year, if we're going down in students?
Well, that was gonna be my next question. Where are we tracking as far as ADMs and weighted average?
I can give you my most recent number. That I don't think I have period 5 numbers that's been sent to me yet. Yeah, period 4 is the last that I've received from our data department. So 262 students down at the end of period 4 this year compared to period 4 last year. And I believe, Dr. Flannery, we don't know whether the state's going to hold us harmless for that or not yet. Is that correct? There's been talk both ways on that.
The legislators with whom I have spoken have said that they support public education, and that's all they'll say.
Is that due to COVID,
We,
or is that due to?
we lose about 100 kids a year anyway.
Right.
But the reason that's so much bigger, well, I can't prove this, but the number of kids that we know have gone to homeschools is nearly identical to the extra number of kids that we miss. So you have to guess that a lot of those kids will come back to us come opening the school in August if things are back to normal.
I thought we gained kids. When we opened Boone's Creek, we gained some kids.
We knew that was just probably a year or so.
That was the same year that we picked up kids from Greene County as well because of a school closure. But you only open a new school once in a blue
Brad,
moon.
what's our total enrollment?
About 82, isn't it?
Right here, the 8,093 is the most recent data I have now.
Do you have 2017?
I believe I do here.
What is it right now? What do you say?
Period 4 was 8,003 for this year.
8,093.
And I do have back to FY18 on here. Let's see if we can go to period 4. Been a while since I've been in this folder. Let's see. $83.63. That's period 4 from 3 years ago to period 4 now. And the reason you should look at the same periods is there's some fluctuations through the years, so it gives you the same point of measure.
Well, while you're doing that, do you care to go ahead and hit 20? Same period last year.
FY20,
Might as well look at them while we're looking.
83.55.
So where we picked up those kids, we balanced out from 18 to 20. And now we're back down to where we probably ought to be. Right?
We've picked up a trend that we've seen for 10 straight years that you drop about 100 kids a year.
Yeah. All we did was balance it for 2 years.
We knew Boones Creek would attract kids. We knew we'd pick up kids from Greene County. That happened. That blip is over.
Yeah, temporary fix.
Now, Sullivan County is closing the school, Sullivan Middle, but it probably won't impact Fall Branch, probably won't impact Gray.
How many of those do you think could be attributed to homeschooling?
200.
200?
That's growing too, right?
What?
Homeschooling.
Yeah, but it just, every family has a different set of reasons, but I've got this gut feeling that a lot of them will come back.
Does the Department of Education, do they track the number of homeschool students within the county?
No, it's our responsibility. And under state law, if they go to a homeschool for religious reasons, they don't even have to tell us.
And speaking of Fall Branch, for example, I'm sorry.
Well, and another thing too, we feel like a lot of kids skipped kindergarten this year, even though that they would have aged in. And somebody had they said they took a red shirt year, and I think that's an after. And I just got this feeling by the time Labor Day gets here, you're going to have a pretty big kindergarten class.
But you can go back a couple of years, Fall Branch was down to 211 students. That's FY19 period 4. And then last year they were up, April of 19 to 253 and 239. And then, so that was that flux like Dr. Flannery was talking about, that school that closed out of county. So they did get a shot in the arm there. And they're still at, as of the most recent data, Fall Branch is at 239.
Well, assuming the state holds us harmless on the enrollment loss, though, what does that do to our local funding in terms of, if Johnson City has lost 0 and we've lost 262, then we're going to end up with a smaller amount of local dollars. So they've got to drop proportionally the amount we do.
Because the state holding us harmless would be in relation to BEP.
Right.
That would not apply to the local ADA split with Johnson City.
Mr. Meredith, in talking to their superintendent, their drop is about what ours has been.
Okay, all right.
About everybody's has.
Okay. Thank
Somewhere
you.
between 3 and 4%.
Thank you.
And right now, we're roughly, it's 51 to 49%. We have 51% versus about 49%. It's not an even number, but it's kind of where we split with Johnson City with the local tax revenue. We give roughly 51% to their 49 right now. Of course, we don't get any of the Johnson City municipal tax. Their school system gets 100% of that.
Have you, if we looked at, and I know it's early in the year, well, not late enough in the year really to come up with a good number, but, I mean, have you looked at the projection of your fund balance to June 30th? So where do we think we'll be as we roll into this new year?
Right now, we're definitely not projecting that we're gonna go backwards right now, but we've got a lot of things that could happen over the next few months. The sales taxes help us quite a bit, these first 7 months. And there's several things on the big expenses that haven't materialized yet that we have budgeted. So it's just, the electric bus, for example, is one of them. Now granted, that will be paid for with a grant for over half of that. We have $130,000 that's sitting in our fund balance that was donated from Bright Ridge and TVA. And then we had $75,000 from a total bus a couple of years ago. That's sitting in our fund balance. So that will drop our fund balance over $200,000 if that electric bus hits before June 30th as well. So, but the fund balance right now, I'm not projecting it to go down at this point. Even though we budgeted to, but it's gonna depend, as you know, the next few months, what hits.
And we've got about what in it, 10?
10.3 was what we had with at the end of last year's audits. Right now, it's actually up higher as this time of year. Once we get the property tax revenue in, it spikes up there, 16, 17, 18 million. But we know come May and June combined, we run about an $8 million deficit. We call it really deferred payroll for those hits in June. So we needed to get up there around that $18, $19 million range so that we can handle that deficit come May and June and maintain that 10.3 is a goal. Certainly a goal. But right now it's projecting up there a little higher than that, but there's still a lot of big expenses we haven't that haven't hit yet. We'll have to see if they materialize.
We've not put anything down for diesel fuel being up.
Yeah,
Have you-
we looked at lowering that, but I'm afraid to. The more I look at it, I'm just afraid to lower our diesel fuel expense, because I first had about a 40,000 reduction. Me and Mr. Roberts looked at that, but when I looked at what was really spent year before last, before COVID, it's just, and we don't expect the price to go down, so.
It's not. I mean, there's no way it's gonna go down.
And we, the
And
last
propane too will go. It's
The
gonna
last
go up.
full regular year, we spent 276,000, and we've got 275 budgeted,
Yeah.
so I'm afraid to mess with that diesel fuel.
Well, I don't think we can. I think we better put some in it.
Mr. Cannon?
Have we looked at how many kindergartners we already have registered? Do we know that number?
Yes. It's not a good indicator of what you're
Well,
going to
it
have.
never
You
is
know.
about this time of year, but
Yeah.
how
I
are we?
sent you that in an update a couple of weeks ago, and I can't remember what, it was
I
60
didn't.
some odd.
It was what?
It seemed like it was in the 60s, but you won't know until Labor Day how many
I know.
kindergartners are in this class.
That's about normal though,
That's about normal.
so that's good news that it's normal.
And a lot of families are scared to come to the schools for
Right.
obvious reasons.
Right.
So,
I'll find that number again, and I'll update the board.
I was just wanting to know if it was about normal.
I'm curious too. I'll get that number for you, send it out Friday. Remind me of that.
So have we pretty much gotten all your, Dr. Flannery, have we pretty much gotten all of our, departments, schools, their, we call it the wish list items? You know, have we gotten all those pretty well pulled into Brad's schedule here?
Unless a member of the board has an
Well-
additional item to add, I think we're at the optional budget items, is that what you're calling it, Brad?
yes.
I like that phrase better,
There's something missing. Last year, we had talked about, splitting a counselor between Midway and Asbury, and that's just not possible. So we need to add a counselor for Midway onto that list.
So you're talking a full-time counselor for Midway?
It would have to be because evidently it's not possible for
What's
the
your
two to share.
thoughts on that, Dr. Flannery? What's your thoughts on that?
It's a need.
Well, I had something down here, and of course I've got something to read.
At a budget meeting?
Well, yes, I have something down here.
Stop it, stop making fun of Mary Beth.
Okay. Well, I'll just talk about it later then. I'm sure, I'll let you all wonder.
She got a note for a budget meeting.
Everything on there can be justified.
It's, let me,
Just go for it.
No,
what's, maybe Dr. Flannery or Kelly one, I've heard some rumors that we could get funding for nurses in the schools.
Right now, the state BEP funds one nurse for 3,000 kids, which is nothing.
Yeah.
The legislation would fund one nurse for 750 kids, which is a significant amount of money. And everybody needs to call Miss Alexander.
Yeah. Well,
And,
that's something
Oh, that would help.
Yes, that'd be big money for this.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. Those extra details asked.
Well, mine is the need for instructional assistance. Because I'm not
Well, we
saying
all-
we need that many.
We all know that, but,
Well, I'm not saying we need that many. I wouldn't mind phasing in maybe 4, 2 on one side of the county and 2, and then phase in some others as we go, because I've had a lot of people contact me, school employees, and they're concerned over the past few years being short-staffed. Lack of supervision in cafeterias and less individual help with students, and we really need to address this. The principals are having to pull these assistants to cover classes when substitutes are not available, leaving less to supervise cafeterias and help with students. And with the state's focus on getting students called out, these extra employees, excuse me, would make a big difference. But I don't think we need 10, but I think we need to make that a priority to start getting these back, because this happened 4 years ago. There seemed to be an initiative to eliminate instructional assistants at each school, and we never have really caught up with that, right?
I agree, but, you know, it's,
I know, but
that is a reoccurring funds when you put employees in, and, you know, if we're
Well,
down in students.
sorry.
Who, did a principal say that or somebody?
I've had a lot of people, I've had principals tell me that, which is basically why they need help in cafeterias. Because when they have to pull, we have all kinds of things that you don't even realize could happen in cafeterias with kids that have allergies, kids, all kinds of things could happen. And when you pull, I've had some assistants tell me they have responsibility, sometimes it's one person for over 200 students. And that's not right. We really need to focus on that. And even though the best laid plans, a principal might have more people, but as they pull people, do you see what I'm saying?
Is that in a smaller school, Miss Buchanan, or Miss Dilger?
The person that, no,
Okay.
it's in a pretty large.
He's just getting here, he's gotta get acclimated.
Well,
No, I know exactly
That's
what you're
Miss
saying,
Jones.
no, I know.
I know, but, yeah,
That's
it's
Miss
something
Sidra,
we
I guess.
really need to address. I'm not saying we need 10, but I would like to phase some in. We really need to get back to where we actually were.
It's almost becoming a safety issue.
It is becoming a safety issue. All kinds of things could happen, and I don't know.
How would this,
Yes, sir.
how would that dovetail in with, we know that we've got this significant learning loss that we're going to have to overcome in a
Right.
relatively short period of time. We know that the state is going to provide some funding for some programs this summer, which I'm assuming will be probably after the 1st of July, which would be in our next budget year, I'm assuming. Do we have, Dr. Flannery and Brad, have we put any optional budget items in here for learning loss remediation?
There's a huge pot of money coming in for the summer programs, and they'll
Right.
start in June.
Right.
And,
But if it's not sufficient, it's where I'm.
Pressure 2.0 cover the shortfall, because the summer program is a one-time expenditure.
Right.
So we want to use one-time money to cover it.
Well, them 2 high school math interventions does what you say, right?
That's kind of what I'm asking.
Yes.
I've
But I've got an idea
Go ahead.
about your 10 assistants. How many bus drivers are we short?
Oh, it changes every day, 7.
About 10.
About 10.
Well,
How many?
10.
About 10.
yeah. You know, would there be any interest in having 10 bus drivers and paying more to be a full-time assistant, full-time employee?
That is, I mean, they would be helping during the middle of the day, and they could still be helping with individual students that needed remediation. It's a possibility.
Why don't we offer it to the bus drivers we got?
Well, we could, but I mean, we need 10 bus drivers, we need 10 here.
I mean, you might be able to do some of it right away and then add, still need to hire 10, sounds like, regardless.
Do you think it'd be any interest in that,
We
Dr. Adams?
already have a few bus drivers who also serve as instructional assistants, mostly in the CDC programs for the special education. But we do have a few that do both.
Could we sweeten that pot, bring it cheaper than, would it still be 250? Well, but you wouldn't need 250,000, because obviously you got 10 spots you've already figured on the bus drivers.
It would be significantly less, for one thing, insurance. Because a big part of that 25,000 per IA is insurance. You don't know what insurance they're gonna take, but we're using about a $9,000–10,000 average on insurance, depending on whether they get an individual or family plan, so.
But
It
I'm-
would be significantly less.
Well,
if you
I'm
had an
still
existing
saying to
employee.
offer me insurance. But what I'm saying is in Tony's budget, he's got 10 bus drivers. I don't know what 10 bus drivers would cost, but say it's 50,000, 10 bus drivers, but you wouldn't need 250,000, all you need is 200, right?
It would give a new bus driver an opportunity to get insurance as well, because right now they can't pick up the state insurance because they work less than the 30 hours.
Right.
But if they are going to do IA work in addition, that would negate that, so. But if they're an existing bus driver, they may or may not have insurance, if they've been here a year.
Okay.
They may or may not have insurance.
But it would also fix that problem if somebody having to wait a full year for insurance if they were full-time.
Yeah, the ones that haven't been here a year have that self-pay plan that the board approved a year or two ago, but they have.
Well, what I'm saying, instead of 250,000, take 10 bus drivers off of Tony or Dr. Adams' transportation,
Probably eliminates $100,000 of that.
so we're at
That is
150,000.
good.
Well,
You
we need
have
to
to
sweeten
have
that
people
pot.
You have to have people willing to do that. That becomes a long day when you pick up, work,
Let's sweeten the
drive it.
pot to where that makes it effective. I mean, it would fix two problems if you found 10 bus drivers, which I don't think they're standing out there on letting me looking for work, but it may interest them if the pot's sweet enough.
For bus drivers that have been here longer than a year, what's our insurance cost for them?
Well, that's where they go on the regular state plan, just like any.
Even though they're working less than 30 hours?
You know, there's a state put a 1 year on there. I believe it's less than a 25-hour week, if I'm not mistaken. But it's something we went round and round with the state about for a long time, but that's their rule in the state plan.
So I'm just trying to, so if they're working less than 30 hours a week, then we're providing them the same insurance coverage that we're providing our certified, or
After they've been
anybody's
here a year.
working full-time.
Once they've been here a year.
Okay.
I think the state calls it the 25-hour rule, even though for us it's 30
You
hours.
wanna go, Whitney?
it's my turn.
Just a second, Whitney.
Mitch asked if adding those, how would that help out with our learning loss? If you add somebody to the classroom, that adds to the learning loss because you can work small groups and individuals. So that really does put, your money where your mouth is when it comes to learning loss.
And this year's gonna be very important with
Yes.
that too.
So either adding a person or lowering a class size. That's your two options right there.
But I don't want, I'm sorry, go ahead with it.
That's all right, on a different topic, so if y'all wanna talk this out, go ahead.
Hold it, just hold it.
I don't want to, do anything until we find out what we're getting from, what kind of money we're getting from the state. I mean, we may end up having to let employees go. Now, do you wanna let a teacher go or hire an instructional assistant? You know, I don't wanna let nobody go. And I'm sorry that they're getting work, but gotta wait. We can't do nothing till we find out what we got.
Well, then that's what we're doing tonight, it's just talking about our needs, right?
I understand.
Okay.
I understand, but we've always had needs.
Right.
Go now, let's change subject.
So, is there any way we can gauge how well received summer school will be as far as the number of children attending?
They're, Cindy around there.
Yes, I'm sitting back here. We are in the process of, I've had multiple team meetings, steering committee meetings, and our next step is to send out an official pre-registration form, kind of gauge how many's in attendance. But what we've done is taken past numbers of summer school and increased it, used a little algorithm to increase what I think will happen this summer for a lot of those families who want to attend, and all the incentives that we're giving them this year with free transportation and free meals. So we'll have that. I should have that information by the end of March, because that's what I told Tony today at the bus garage, that I would have that for him so he could work on the bus route and schedule.
And by the way, we're not allowed to have any virtual summer programs. It must be in person.
You know, with summer camp having transportation, I think you'll see a huge turnout, because a lot of it is transportation.
I got something. Can I go? What happened to that deal that Jill Leonard did down there at South Central that we had money problems with in the summer? Reading something? Remember
The
that?
state dropped it, didn't they? The state didn't
Read to
fund
be
it.
ready.
Read to be ready. That was a good program, wasn't
It's a
it?
very good program.
Do we have that this
I
year?
haven't heard anybody say that phrase in a year.
No?
They're on to something else, Reading 360.
Yeah, the state's moved on to another
And we're right in the
Shiny.
middle of that, training.
Okay.
sunshine, so.
All right, what else?
Just going off that topic there of summer school, so we hope we have really, really high success with that. What if we don't? Then what goes with all the ESSER money propping that up?
ESSER, summer school numbers and ESSER 2 money is not predicated on each other. The summer school money that comes from the state legislation is, if we don't have a certain quota, literally a quota, they can claw back some of that money. And now, if we got ESSER 2 money dedicated to summer programs and don't need it, you just put it on something else.
Right.
You can change that budget.
So it's
very
fluid, you
easy.
can move it around.
You can move ESSER money around.
Gotcha.
The state legislated money for summer programs, they've tightened it down pretty tight. I think I told the board we're looking for 2,000 kids. We really need 2,000 kids. We have to get a certain percentage of students that are economically disadvantaged, or they will withhold funding. So that's what we're working on.
Like
And
Annette said,
having
with transportation.
breakfast, lunch, and snacks, and providing transportation is the way to get that
Good
population.
call. So, now we're gonna move on to another subject.
We got another one.
Well, yeah, I would like to talk about the IAs for the CTE.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me back up a minute.
Okay, you bet.
So what you're saying, I think, I don't disagree with you, but I really feel like that ought to be coming from our staff instead of somebody in the community as far as what we need, what we don't need. I feel like Dr. Flannery and them would come to us and say, we need more people in the schools. I'm not saying it's bad, but you understand what I'm saying. I don't know how to, I hate to just be acting on stuff. I mean, we all know that we could hire 20 if
Well,
we.
these are people
yeah.
in the community that have brought these to me, so
I
I figured it
understand
was
that.
up to me,
And I
instead
don't
of
mean no
going around to
disrespect to
principals and
them.
asking them what they think.
But I mean, shouldn't, if they want them, shouldn't they ask us? I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, I'm just throwing it out there.
Have individual principals asked for anything?
Not me.
I don't think they have, but.
Should we ask?
Ashley and Cindy be able, they compile that, so if y'all want to talk about that.
I asked both of my principals for a wish list, and it's included in what I turned in.
Optional budget items, Ashley.
Yes,
No.
optional budget items. I apologize.
Talking about your two math interventionists and,
Excel, science, equipment, sleeping textbooks.
But the assistants, you didn't ask for them?
My high schools do not ask.
Okay, high school
It's
didn't.
mainly elementary that's had
No,
issues with
you need to hear me
cafeteria.
out.
well, no, but I'm,
Oh, we're talking to them.
Well, don't dismiss.
Oh, we're not done.
Okay.
We're just talking, I ain't hitting no hammer, we're just trying to finish this topic before we moved on to yours. I had a thought.
We're still working on predictions right now, with our numbers just finishing up kindergarten screening, and that gives us an idea. Your instructional assistants, right now, the K-8 principals have been focusing a lot on resources to help close that gap with learning loss with their teachers. But also, on the other hand, they have been short-staffed instructional assistants. And being a principal the last few years, there are a lot of times principals and assistant principals were full in cafeteria duty. You know, that's the place. If anything's gonna happen, it's gonna happen in the cafeteria or out on the playgrounds. So a lot of us pulled that duty because an eye was pulled to fill in a classroom.
Yeah.
Or a teacher that got sick, I think, fell off or something. But to get to those numbers right now, we're still in that process.
So you don't have it on this list?
No.
Because you don't know what you need?
Well,
Yeah.
as far as instructional assistants.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking about what you said, I didn't disagree, I just felt like you all would,
Right.
you need them, you'd ask, but anyway, okay, I'm sorry, I was just questioning.
So mine is not, mine is for the CTE.
Okay.
You know, you've been in our buildings and you see that the people who are doing greenhouse management and all the FFA stuff, they can't be in two places at one time. So they either have to take all their whole class out there to work in small groups with this group, or they just have to stay in the classroom, period. Same thing with our machine shop. We don't have the opening where there's the big window between their classroom and the machine shop. So if you've got some that's not past their safety and can't be out in the machine shop, you either can't move on with these kids, then you have to stay with these kids. So they need somebody to be scheduled to use them so that they can don't have to try to be two places at once. They're struggling to teach their certifications because they can't be two places at once. And we have, put ourselves behind CTE, and that's something they need to be able to move constructively forward.
So they've got kids that are qualified and kids that are unqualified in every class. Instead of having like kids that are not there just yet in this class and kids that are here in this class and kids that are a little more advanced in this class.
Well, if you have a class of first year for machine shop, they have to pass a safety test before they can move in here. Well, if you've got some that cannot pass the safety test, they've taken it 3 times, and you need to be moving on with these kids in here, somebody's got to watch both sets of kids.
well, should,
I mean, and then with FFA, you've got some kids that are working on one set of greenhouse stuff, and you've got others that are working on, competition. So you've got lots going on there. So they need the extra set of hands just here and there. And I know Boone's the same way.
How, on the amount here, it's 4 CTEIAs, 25,000.
getting them for cheap, aren't we?
If we are,
I'm not,
Which line's that on there?
It's
Third
on the
one,
4th one
optional.
on option.
As a
Let me
typo,
s-
as a
Okay,
typo.
that's what I
Yeah.
thought,
If
okay.
For 4, that should, I'll change that now.
Right,
That's-
uh-huh.
Jan talked to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I say
You gotta
something?
add zero
But
to
now,
that.
you tell me what
I'm gonna jump on his drink.
it may take yet.
Go ahead.
This is just me thinking out loud, but if they can't pass the safety part
Yeah.
in a short amount of time, I mean, it's kinda like when you're teaching, to me, it's like teaching Algebra 1, you know, I know you got somebody that's really far ahead or somebody far behind, you kinda have to, you know, bring everybody together. But in shop class, if you know, if you can't get past the minimum, shouldn't we kick them to something else? And I know you got like
Well,
greenhouse
that's not my
1, 2.
decision.
No, but I mean, wouldn't
That's
that?
kinda where I was going in a.
You know, that's not my decision.
That's kinda
But the
what I was
fact
saying
that-
without saying
That
it, I mean.
safety-wise,
Shit,
we
that was in the
are
same class.
responsible for making it safe. That's the only thing I can think of doing. Because you can't hire another machine shop teacher just to sit in here with these kids or whatever.
But I'm just thinking,
And I know there's multiple other things. It's not just that. That's just examples I've been given, from both sides of the CTE world. There's a need for one in that CTE area so that they can be rotated to wherever they're needed.
I think it'd take a special individual
You're right.
to spread around
Well,
to for every.
There was
CTE.
one, we had one at Crockett for a long time and he retired. And that's what he did. Ms. Wright had him moving from place to place in there. They worked out their own schedule and figured out how he fit in and, you know, he retired and wasn't replaced, so.
Well, now, let me,
Do we have, on these, Brad, I'm sure we do have, where exactly, I signed all in papers a while ago, where exactly is the changes that we're adding?
Okay.
Is there like a simple line I can look at?
So, on the bottom section, it's,
Like that one page.
changes.
This one
That one
page,
page.
The one
Here.
page.
the bottom
Those
of the,
have- Those have not been put in the budget yet, because,
Okay.
but where they would go, if you'll look over to the next to the last column,
Uh-huh.
it will have the expense line item number. For example, the top principals to become 12-month employees. That was one, all principal. If that was the case, it'd be about $136,000 impact. That would impact line number, go over next from the one from the right side, 72410-104.
Mhm.
You can find that. So the 72410 is the section number. You would go to this
Okay.
document, find that line item.
Okay.
That's where it would go, but it's not in there yet, since it's an optional request.
But your first set of lines are in.
Yes.
That
Yes.
first section is in there.
Right. And the reason the salary says multiple lines is there may be 50 different line items through the budget with salaries, but the ones that can be identifiable to a single line are listed. Electricity, for example, that 2%, 72610-415. And then we can go to that section and see that amount, which is a little over $2 million.
so we didn't put the money in CTE again?
I did not, since that's up to the board. So CTE's at the bottom. There is a placeholder there.
Yeah.
CTE additional funding for the program, you all put $250 last year, so I didn't put anything there until you all decide this year.
have you already talked about the principal?
We have
The
that.
12-month contract?
Clear it out.
I brought up the principals on a 12-month contract because they're pretty much already working a 12-month contract. Without saying it, I mean, am I the only
Are they
one that feels that way?
10 months now or 11 and a half?
11,
I'm sorry?
11,
They're 11.
except for the high school, they're 12.
High school's a 12 months.
Yes.
Everybody else getting paid for 11.
And working 12.
We're working.
I wouldn't mind going 11 and a half, but I think they need some time off sometime.
I mean,
I guess.
I know
that-
I'm sorry.
Does that apply, just my education, does that apply to all the staff within the schools other than the high school, the secretaries, the bookkeepers, the assistant principals, whoever else may be.
I believe assistant principals are 10.5, if I'm not mistaken. But your school staff's usually, other than the high schools, on a 10-month contract.
Okay.
Like IAs work 10 months, teachers are on a 10-month contracts. Now, you'll have certain custodial staff that are not going to be on a 10-month contract.
Can I ask Ms. Hayes to weigh in on that, Dr. Planner?
Please.
Cindy, I mean, you used to be one. I mean,
We work 12 months. Even, yes,
I mean,
and they have.
we can call it whatever we want to, but
Getting paid or not, you're, we work 12 months. And a lot too, though, is just preparing your schools before that first day, even when admin returns. But summer school and then training from the State Department, you know, a lot of that training is over the summer, so you're spending time there, and any district training. So you are working 12 months.
So if we do that, then how do they get vacation?
well, the high schools still get a week, don't they usually take a week off? And I mean, maybe you shouldn't say it, but don't they?
2 weeks, isn't it? February, February.
Well, that's what I mean, you gotta
That's what I
compromise
said,
on
11
it
and a half.
somewhere.
So you
What's
still
the
get 2
typical
vacations.
industry standard for that? I mean, what do other systems do? What's normal for that?
I don't think, that's a good question. I don't think there is one. I think that it varies from system to system. If we can check that out.
You know, certain teachers like agriculture are 12 months.
That's by law, though. They're different, have been for decades. It would be interesting to know what other systems would
But
do.
they go on vacation.
Yeah, I mean, they'll get their 12 months time in, but they'll still call
When,
that time.
when you're an actual 12-month employee, you get vacation time, but you don't unless you're a 12-month employee. So you get.
So there's your
40
answer.
days.
There's your answer. If you
15
turn
days,
it,
15 years experience and above, you get 15 days of vacation days that you can take. But you have to be a 12-month employee to get vacation.
so if we turn the K-8 principals into a 12-month employee, they get so many days.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
based on how much
Vacation.
experience they have with the system.
So that answers that
And we,
question.
and at that point, is there we can't designate what they can take off.
Not to my knowledge.
So is this right
So
here,
it would be
is
better
this
to
right here
11 and a half.
paying them for 12 months? Is that what this increase is for?
They would be working for 12 months.
I mean, we're paying them for 10 now or
11.
11?
Pay for 11.
So this is to pay them for 12?
Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
again, it won't affect the high school principals, they're already 12.
Is that just principals or AP
It's
students?
just principals.
But you're gonna pay them for an extra month, but then you have to give them more vacation paid.
If they've got 15 years of experience, they'll get up to 15 days of vacation.
But what, they're already working. I mean,
Well, not necessarily, you don't know what all of them's working at.
are all of them working at Dr. Planner?
They're all working over 11 months. I'll guarantee you that. They're putting in time in July.
Well, let me ask you a question, Brad. I mean, I'm no math magician. But the 5K and 3K for assistant principals are the 12-month principal's contract. There's $3,000 difference. So does that mean that the principals would gain more money by being a 12-month employee, or would they gain more money if they were 5K?
I would say the
12
principals
months.
would gain more being 12 because the assistant principals are in that bucket as well. The principals, well, and this would also help the high school principals out if you're doing a 5K increase for all principals. So it's not exactly apples to apples, I guess. So you've got the high school principals that would be included in the 5K increase. All assistant principals would be included in the 3K increase, where they would not get anything in the principals becoming 12 months because the first one doesn't affect assistant principals. So it is two different things, really there. So
So they would, the K-8 principals would gain more going on a 12-month
I believe,
contract than the 5,000.
Yeah, because almost all of them gross more a month than $5,000.
yeah.
So, Dr. Planner, you put one on there, and I put the other on there. but-
Actually, I didn't. That was a board member. My name's just on it.
My thing is, I know the principals, if they're not in the building, they are working probably on their laptops or doing something
So,
in the summer.
Yeah, and they can pick and choose their times that they work. If we put them on, 11 and a half or a 12-month contract, we're making sure we've set them into this is what we're,
Well, that's kinda what I was getting at, how do you know they really wanna do that?
Well, they're already working it, the ones I know, and that's the reason why, I mean, I should have asked Cindy to put that on her wish list. I don't know how your principals feel about that. What do you think, Cindy?
Well, I think they would be very honored right now to know that, today it's been noticed that they are already working 12 months. And, to show, that we are aware of that, we appreciate it, and we know their value. Because honestly, from this point on, the principal across the United States, will be working 12 months. They've got a long road ahead of them closing this learning loss gap. And it's gonna require a lot of summer planning.
Well, I just don't know how to deal with the off time. I mean, they need off time.
that's what I'm saying. If you do 11 and a half months, that's 2 weeks right there that they have off.
Plus
But they
some
have
vacation.
an opportunity, if they get
No.
vacation
They
days.
wouldn't have vacation days. They're not gonna take them unless you force them to.
Well, I mean, if they don't, if you pay them 11 and a half, there's like now, we're paying them 11 months, but they're working 12. They got 4 weeks off. And they're,
But they're working.
Dr. Adams.
I was just gonna say, the vacation days are only good for the calendar year, so if you don't use your 10 by the end of the calendar year, they disappear. I guarantee you from my conversations with the principals, they would appreciate being paid for that 12th month that they're already working, and they'll take their vacation days, but instead of having to take it in the summertime, they might take 5 days during Memorial Day. They might take 3 days around add an extra day to Labor Day. They'll be very judicious in how they use those days, but they will use them.
well, can we poll the principals? We ain't make a decision tonight, but can we poll the is that,
Yeah, either or. I'd like to do either or, not both.
Well,
So-
I just think if you,
Yeah.
if you're basically, you're requiring them to work
Right.
12 months, so you
Well, it's
need
full.
to give them another day or two. I mean, you need to give them more vacations, all I'm saying.
would it be appropriate to let Dr. Adams and Cindy poll the K-8 principals?
Well,
That's who it's
means-
affecting.
By all means.
Here's a thought.
2 things, board, I have never seen. Been here a long time. I have never heard a principal ask for more pay, and I have never seen a summer yet that we didn't lose good principals to higher pay in school systems. And you could fix it, and it's actually in the board's advantage to put them on 11 and a half or 12 months, because you get more work for the money.
Here's a thought, if you do the 12 month, granted that doesn't do anything for the high schools, you could then say for the high schools, if you wanted to, maybe add the 5K to the high school. Because if you do the 12 months, that doesn't affect the high schools, but then you could say, because the high school principals get a larger supplement anyway, because they're high schools. You could just increase that by 5,000 or whatever you decided. That's just some food for thought if you
If you
want to.
break that out, then at the next time, doesn't have to be right now, but say, give 1,000, an extra 1,000 to all the assistant principals, extra 3,000 to all the assistant principals. And then, of course, we know, either, that'd be 10,000 for the 2 high school principals. But could we figure that, Brad?
Say that again.
Do you know how many assistant principals we
Is
have?
that Excel?
There
Okay,
are 6 at the high school,
For the map and
then at
whatever.
we have 9 schools with 1, so I want to say that's 50.
Extra. So we 15,000, they still don't have range at the 528.
I may have that marked, Chad, give me just a second.
Okay, I'm sorry, but, and that's okay if you want to wait on that, Brad, but
I think I do.
Yeah,
have
we'll
that
do
marked.
that research. That'd be easy. Jennifer, remind me of that. We'll get on that.
That's coming off that pay scale.
you like that, Chairman?
Yeah, I like it, I like
And
it.
that's not, I'm not,
Thank you
Do
for
you
that.
think that'd be fair to hold them to see? I mean, if they don't want it, they don't want it.
Yeah,
No, but
yeah,
I'm
that's
just
what
saying,
I'm doing.
I'm just saying, what it is.
Yeah, I mean,
Because she has a master's. But if they have an EDD,
I'm truly working on it.
right, but then there's a, hey Brad, did you say that there was a principal supplement
It's embedded in the formula. It's in
in
board
the pay
policy.
scale?
What we gonna do
Yeah.
on CTE?
It's not gonna be broke out in that budget notebook. The budget notebook's gonna include that.
Well,
Within board
no,
policy,
oh.
you have a formula for principals.
Would-
And part of it's gonna be based off of an amount, how many teachers they supervise.
Right.
For example,
Yeah,
but for high schools,
Well,
they
it
get a couple of-
differentiates between a 200 student school
Yeah.
and
Yeah, because student size will represent how many teachers
Right,
they have, but it's so
right.
much for so many teachers, so
Okay.
much for
Okay.
others. But the high school principals have a $4,000
Just
supplement embedded in their pay where the others are two.
Oh,
And it's just because there's more responsibility in the high school. But what my point was, you could just up that supplement if you chose. Do that.
That 250.
Yeah,
last
15 is,
year.
Chad, that is, I've got it marked in here, 15 assistant principals.
So 15, and is this fixed cost too? I mean, you got a fixed cost in there, so if we said 3K, it wouldn't necessarily be 45,000, you gotta put the fixed cost in there,
Out
correct?
there in the columns would include the fixed cost.
Will you just fix that for the next time we talk about this? And I don't think we're making a decision on it, but
Now, let's let everybody get all of our stuff out of the way, and then when we come back that way, we can just go down the list and say,
yes, no.
yes, no,
Well-
yes, no, add this, add
How do
that.
you want it broke down? I'm sorry.
No, just pull the
That'd be the
assistant
best way to
principals
do it.
out to 3K,
This is good
and
discussion
assistant
here.
principals 1K, what that would be?
You mean pull it out?
Yes,
Okay.
just single, and then just put the high school principals, the 2 high school principals, 5 and 3K, broke out just, just fixed cost on that.
Just high school?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
And that
this,
way, I'm sorry, because we already have the numbers, if we don't go to 12 months, say we hear back from our principals and they don't wanna go 12 months, we can come back to these numbers you already have.
Well, I'd like to see us put the 250 back in the budget for the CTE.
Well, if we add courses, are we gonna need more than that, or are we gonna do it separate?
That was just something that we could, that was a number that we could all agree on last year, so that's where I'm starting at. And if anybody wants to put more money into it, I will be happy.
So I'll change that to your name, at 250 and that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Well, I'd rather that bubble up than us just say, here's a bunch of money, go spend it.
yeah, but we,
Well, I don't
last
think
year they
anything-
spent it
No,
all.
I know, but I'd like to hear it coming up from the, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure we got a list, don't we? We
Okay.
got a
We
list.
got a list.
250 enough?
No,
Mr. Hager,
just say it.
without any optional budget items whatsoever,
I don't want to be
how
stingy
far
or
is this
selfish,
budget out
but
of
we
balance
appreciate
with just
anything that
the
the board chooses to pull out.
must-haves?
Okay.
I'll be sure to spend it.
As long as you spend it wisely.
I
So
always do.
Go ahead.
based off of the rough revenue projections we were discussing this morning, which are not on here because we don't know what BEP's coming in. With none of these extra items, we were projecting anywhere from a 2.6 to 3.6 million shortfall, just depending on where that
That's-
needs to be.
That's
what we
half
got
to, that's with no extras.
No, wait a minute. That's without any of this.
Yes, you're starting out at least $2.5 million in the red.
And last year we finished at 3.5, is that right?
3.44 and then recently up to 3.9.
So you're telling me we're at how much and you're wanting to add?
Another 2.3.
So you're talking about being 5 million in there.
If you add
Oh.
everything, yeah, you would. So,
That's all fund balance.
so with these
Well, how did we get in
expenses.
this position?
You draw out of fund balance every
Huh?
year.
I mean,
Well, now, wait a minute.
Something ain't adding up, my
Well,
mind.
we budget out of fund balance, but we don't use it. We keep growing fund balance.
Right.
Because we grew fund balance so much
Okay.
in FY.
Well, last year
So how
was
much
an
was
odd
it last
year.
year? How
We
much
grew
is it
fund
this
balance
year?
$2 million last year.
Right.
There was about $1 million in there that was extra sales tax grant. We had $300,000 windfall from E-rate, $130,000 in donations for the electric bus. So all that together is roughly $1 million.
So what was our top line last year before we went 3.5 out of it? And what's our top line this year before you're wanting us to go 5 or 6 out
What
of
we
it?
ain't used
We
at
didn't use that
3.5.
3.5.
That's fine, but
We
just
took,
flatter me
we
here a
said we
minute.
would if we had to, but we've not used it.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Let me expand this.
Go ahead.
So last year, your original budget, you had $74,123,000 was your expense
Okay.
in the original budget. Projected revenue was $70,682,000. you had to have 3.44 million budgeted out of fund balance to make up that deficit.
That's what I'm looking for right there.
And that's our current, that's the FY 21 budget, correct?
Keith's sitting here telling me we didn't spend
Yeah.
that 3.4, right?
Right.
We haven't
Okay.
yet.
We
Well,
haven't yet.
this is the year we're in right now. This is FY 21.
This was original budget.
Not
This
FY
is,
20.
this is the amended budget with this shaded column, so.
Do you foresee us having to use that in?
Not, right now, it's not looking that way.
So where's my income this year?
Year to date,
Projected.
year to,
I have it on another document that's not, on this sheet because we don't know BEP, but I'll pull that document up for you.
Whether, do you have an estimated BEP?
No,
You don't
and
even
it
have
could
it?
be
Yeah, that's the thing.
millions different than last year.
That's why I was afraid to put it on here because,
Well, unless they hold
I
the
mean,
farmers.
it's speculation on the BEP, so we
I
came in.
don't know that there's enough votes. I mean, I talk to people every day.
Well,
See, depending on where this BEP comes in,
Yeah,
we budgeted 35.9, then we got cut 400. Let's say this comes in at 37 million, and this is a guess, y'all, because we
Right.
don't, not 370,
Yeah, that'll
370
Yeah,
million
that'll
would be
work
nice.
either too.
Then that's putting our projected revenue, and what this is doing, this is holding property tax even, same
Yeah.
budget as last year. But it's taken, this is really, if you look at the last 12 months, right now, we're running about 16,700,000 in sales tax collections. So if we take that to the county and justify it by, this is not a projected increase, this is really what we've got at 16.7. And the BEP does come in at over $1 million more, about a 1.3 million more. This is all ifs. Then I'm projecting revenue at 71,537,000. So you take whatever the difference is, so if, that would be a 2.3 million shortfall right there.
and that's without any of the optional items.
That's correct.
still
and,
10 million.
and how much is left from last year, you're saying?
Well, we had 10.3 million in fund balance when we closed last budget year.
If you break even this year, you'll have 10.3 million available again.
That's correct. We break even.
So we're needing around 6.
But,
To pick up the optional items.
but some of these ain't reoccurring money.
Right.
That's correct.
And some of ESSER 2.0 is gonna bring 350 back.
307, I believe, was the amount that.
Come back.
That's
So,
straight in fund balance.
so we got 307 one-time money, say if we took the 250 for CTE, or 57.
You think the rest of them buying that assistance for
Well,
6?
no, that's and
We'll
Okay.
cut it down to one apiece. I'll compromise.
Well, heck, they don't cost for $12,000.
Okay, then I won't offer it.
We're going by these, aren't we?
Thanks, I won't
That's what
offer
I'm
it.
6,000.
I'll take off
6,000.
for it.
Six, yeah.
Leave it alone.
I got a
Yes, sir,
question.
yes, sir.
Philip, how many men are you short?
I'm short 2 in the maintenance department.
Is the money in your maintenance department, or is that needs to be added to this list?
No, sir, when you ask me if I'm short, then that means with the current budget,
Okay.
yeah, we just,
As long as they're vacant positions, they're still budgeted. We didn't do
Ah.
anything else.
So what you really mean is, how many, do you need more people?
I just asked, I mean, he says he's short 2.
I thought
But
you
the
meant
fund-
2 in a year,
no, he's too
I
short.
currently have 2 vacancies in the maintenance department.
with money to pay
The
them.
money with the
Yeah.
payment.
But I thought you was asking,
Well, I
does he
was-
need more?
That was a question. Do you need more, or are we good?
Currently, we're good.
Okay. Curtis, technology,
Okay.
even with all this online stuff,
We'll manage.
is this board gonna do anything with online this fall? Are we requiring the kids to come back to school this fall? Or are we gonna try to do something?
We better deal with that this fall.
Well, it's a budget issue.
I don't know.
I'm sure
how
that's
you
the
can
money
figure
up on
what
that.
that's gonna be.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
You know
I
what
mean,
I'm saying?
we need to plan.
I think we need to wait just a little bit.
Their virtual academy is just high school, isn't it?
9 through 12.
9 through 12.
And there's an approval process you have to go through with the state to go down to 7 through 12 or 6 or 5 through 12.
Okay.
I
And
don't
it's-
think we need to, I think next year though, if we even stay virtual, CTE needs to be in person. I don't,
Can Whitney go or you going?
Anything, I
Okay,
don't know
go
what
ahead,
I'm
I'm
So
sorry.
my
I just don't wanna get in front of you, you get mad at me.
My question
Thought you had
is,
some.
a lot of this stuff looks like it might be handled, maybe some of this one-time stuff with ESSER money. Is that a possibility?
Yes, sir.
So we're really not
Well,
as far
let me
out
caveat
as
that.
it appears.
It's not, the president hasn't signed anything. We don't know what the guidelines are yet. We're just hearing rumors and reading articles.
But a lot of these are education oriented, some of them's reoccurring, but some of them are one-time things that may be able to be
Yes.
fixed with.
A lot of it is
ESSER
gap
money.
closure and student wellness, so yes, it can be covered, yes.
So some of that 3.3 million will be taken away, or can be. from
How
this
many
if we
millions?
choose. Some of this, was it 2.3 million?
Oh, okay.
Well, 1.7, but I think if you move up to
Oh,
one,
yeah,
that's
move
the
up, I'm
total,
sorry.
including
Grand
the
total.
step rate.
So some of that can be taken out of that 1.7.
Without question.
cause it's not reoccurring.
So we're not as far out as we appear with these optional budget items.
This is, it's probably just playing it safe. and-
Yeah, I get it, and it's things that we want, but we're not as far away as we think we are.
So oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, so my question, I have three.
Oh, 3.
I have three. Number one, I do not see any IXL on here for K through 8.
It's in ESSER 2.
It's in answer 2, for all the way through K through 8, because we don't have 6 through 8 right now, do we?
I think we got part of it, don't we?
We've spent a lot of money
Either
on
or
it.
it's in the ESSER 2 plan. to get the
Okay.
rest of it. So we filled all the gaps.
Okay, the next thing is the EpiPen cabinet. It's $4,000. Is it one? Is it?
One for each school. I would like to make certain that the EpiPens really are as accessible as fire extinguishers. 25% of anaphylactic reactions are from people that don't even know they have a life-threatening allergy. And we currently have one in the nurse's office, and we currently have one in the cafeteria. I'd like to place one near the AEDs that are located near the gyms, so that if it's after hours, and it's not there, that people have access to it.
Is that 4,000 per
So-
school, or is that covered?
No, total.
That's number two.
Surely we can do that.
And the last one is, we have a lot of that's not reoccurring funds in there. Can we pull them out and see how much those non-reoccurring things are going to be?
In our regular budget?
Yeah, because, yes, there's all kinds of non-reoccurring, like, we don't have to spend the 250,000 for CTE. That's
Right.
non-reoccurring, that's just coming out there. I mean, Kelly's thing is non-reoccurring. Greenhouse upgrades, those are non-reoccurring.
Maybe you want me to separate them for next meeting, where you have recurring items in one
Yes.
section and not in
Because,
another?
yes, because, somewhere along the line, maybe we can just say, this is how much we're taking out of our fund balance, we're gonna spend it on this, and this is our budget for the entire year. I just think we're getting muddy with having them both in the same area.
All right.
Well,
Go ahead.
I got 2 questions, since Ms. Buchanan got to ask 3.
You can ask them 2 or 3 at a time, how you want
I noticed we didn't save no money on diesel fuel.
I was too afraid to take any out of that. We took 40 out last year. When I looked at the last full year we completed, we came in at 276,000, and we have 275,000 budgeted. The anticipation is fuel's not gonna get less expensive this next year. So at first, we looked at taking more out. It's up to you if you want me to. I was just afraid to do that, because 276 again was the last full regular year of expense.
But we went back to propane on some more.
We got 5 buses that I'm aware of that's propane.
But then we should have another, when does the next tranche come in, Dr. Adams?
They should be here late May, 6 more.
So we'll be running 10 propane buses, 9 or 10 next year,
11.
11.
So you roughly got 10% of your bus fleet that'll be propane.
But
I like that.
propane's
I
gonna
like
go
that.
up too, or it's
How much is
already
propane
went
right
up.
But
now?
that ain't in this line item.
Probably about, we didn't, no,
You had any more for propane?
we did not,
We
because right
keep
now
more
the
price on
budget was
clean air.
healthy. Based on the data we had, I can show you the sheet where we track the expense, the budget looks like it's got plenty to handle extra.
Okay.
181
Let me
or
move.
something like that.
I think it's like, I'm thinking 160,
Change
180.
161.
Yeah, I have it down on the
Yeah,
stage.
still, it's still $1 cheaper right now than diesel fuel, so,
Is it propane?
at least.
But I just wondered why we didn't budget,
That's
we
right.
didn't save no money on that, and I didn't see no extra in the propane, but that second line right there, that art supplies based on student enrollment, at $8,000, is that's $1 extra per child, or per child that they'll get extra on the,
Actually, it's probably a little bit more, because I didn't know we was gonna do high school, but yeah, that would cover $1 a kid system, about 8,200.
well, shouldn't we make it, I mean, I don't know, and I'm just going on hearsay, so, but you know, we got some of our bigger schools that absolutely, I mean, our teachers take a lot of money out of their pocket.
Yeah.
So, you know, some of the smaller schools don't. And
We talked
Cindy,
about that last year.
Yeah, Cindy, I'm not gonna put you on the spot, but next time we meet, can you tell us what that needs to be? Cause $8,000, $1 per child, I don't know, it's still not gonna help, say, a school with 200 versus a school that's got 1,000. It's still, that ain't, will you look into that and see what that needs to be and how to figure that?
Is that how we're gonna do it, to pay them per child?
Well, because BEP already gives them, what, 400 per school. So,
Teacher.
me
Per
and
teacher.
Dr.
Yeah, for teachers. so.
Me and Dr. Flannery talked about how we wanted to, you know, take that away, and he said you couldn't because that's what BEP, you know, makes them give that $400 out. So we were wanting to increase and do it on enrollment, but I'm not so sure that's apples to apples comparison, because it's still not.
So my question is, so if they've got 1,000 kids, you're gonna give them $1,000. If they've got 200 kids, you're gonna give them $200.
Plus their 400 they already got.
Plus their 400 they already have. I mean, that, $1,000 is a big chunk of change.
Yeah, but, I mean, really, how many crayons does $1,000 buy?
Well, you buy 1,000, or no, buy 2,000 because they're 50 cents a box.
To get them good.
But I'm saying, those, their art, the pottery, I mean, some of them really go above it. I'm just thinking, Ms. Hayes, if you don't care to look into that and see if that's appropriate.
Oh, actually, Keith would like
I
to.
want to go. Go ahead.
We have a brand new kiln at Daniel Bean, and they don't have the money to buy the pottery supplies to use it, so just throwing that out there.
Is that on your list?
It's, yeah, on my list, that's in graph.
Okay. Brad, after we did this last year, and we knew it was going $3.5 million out of pocket, how many times did we come back and add to that out of fund balance? Once? How much was it?
500,000,
Okay.
took it to 3.9. Before we jump to something else, Chad, you asked about why I didn't up propane.
Yes.
This is why. Natural gas, right here on this sheet, we have 141,000 budgeted.
I hadn't heard of that
Last
yet.
year, we spent 68, the year before that, we spent 72, so we've got, when I say we got a healthy balance to handle an increase, that's why I didn't add.
So if you add
But
a,
that's natural gas. Now, is it
Propane goes in
propane,
there.
natural gas, both the same?
It goes in there, yeah, that's
Okay.
where the propane goes. So even if we doubled our expense from last year, we got the budget to practically handle that. That's why I felt comfortable of not up in the budget.
so do we need to save 50, pull 50 out of that?
That's your choice as a board.
No.
I didn't know,
I'll
since
let
we're
you know
adding
that's
buses,
coming.
I don't know how much that's going to increase, so it's an unknown.
Yeah, we probably won't take that out. May I, has nobody discussed a raise?
No, since
Oh, it's
Not
on there.
till, I don't see
We're
how we
bracket it on
can
there.
till we see what we get.
But I mean, we're talking hypothetical here anyway.
I know, but
So does anybody want to discuss that?
Well, hypothetically, it would be great
It's
to
on
give
the
a
paper.
5% raise.
It's
but
already on here.
It looks like we could only afford maybe a 2.
For every 1%, it's just over 493,000.
Yeah.
So, for each 1%, that's system-wide, that's every employee.
Fully loaded.
Yeah, fully loaded.
All right, and then you went up on that fund balance, how much, I'm sorry, so you was like at 70 income last year and 71 something projected this year, is that what you're telling me?
That was, yeah, projected income, right here on this sheet. So you're talking, projected, now this is if BEP, and this is an if, I want everybody to understand that.
Right.
If BEP goes up to 37 million, and it may or it may not, because it was at 35.6. So I don't think we can hope for a lot more than that.
Yeah.
It's so great, but it may come in at 36.5, you know, but, I think this is a good estimate, and this is taking the sales tax to what we really have collected in
Right.
12 months. Assuming that don't change as we go through the budget, 71.5, I think, is gonna be in the ballpark of what we'll really.
So 2% is 1.5 million, and you're saying we've increased 1.5 million from last year?
You're talking about expenses now, so let's go back to the budget.
Well, you see where I'm going. Did we make an extra $1.5 million to cover $1.5 million worth of raises?
The truth is, we may, but we won't know that until we
Right.
get closer to the end of the year. Right now, we're tracking very strong.
So, I guess what I was getting at is if we're balancing out with the raise, if we did that, then this other would just come out of fund balance technically. Which would be the best of both
So
worlds.
with
Now,
what-
your number down here though, Brad, that include that, like, I'm looking at 2%
plus.
raise. The 3.325, that includes the 2% raise. So we're really not even out of pocket with
Where?
$1.8 million.
Which
Ish.
sheet are you looking at, Jason?
On your,
Grand
At the bottom.
Ocean,
So now the bottom half of that, none of that's figured into the budget spreadsheet.
so this number's in this number.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not really out this whole number if we increased our profits.
What I'm saying though is this, the main budget worksheet does not include these optional items yet. On that one page you're looking at,
Mhm.
yes, it does, but I have not
Right.
factored it in. When I'm showing you this sheet, your overall expenses, for example, this 73,838,000, that's
Mhm.
step only, that does not include the optional items.
Right.
So we would have to take the optional items for step only, which is 1.766 million, add it to the 75.8.
Is that where I was going, Mitch?
Coming
I
up
think
with
so, yeah, I mean,
75.5.
yeah.
So you'd be talking
I mean, you were
75.5.
looking at, Chairman was looking at the 2% column, and you've already got $1.7 million baked in to the number you have on this screen right here in your 2% column in terms of salaries. And then, so, I think what Jason was saying, the $1,773,000 is really the only
Yeah,
increment to what
extra.
you're looking at.
Increase
Yeah.
of that number, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yes,
looking at.
correct. If you're on the 2% column right here, 74,824,000, you would only add the bottom part of the 2%, which is 1.7.
Yeah.
So that would take that expense up to 76,500,000.
Plus if we added 250 for CTE.
That would include the 250 already. If you
Okay.
add, if you add 1.7 to the 74.8 right here, then that would include the CTE. Let me highlight.
It really
that.
wouldn't,
So-
because some of these, like, Mr. Riddle was saying, are one-time expenditures we could take out of the ESSER money. You got at least 307 that's coming back into fund balance from.
Yes.
I think we just ought to pretend like we don't have no extra money yet though.
No, but you got 307 that we do have. I mean, it's
Oh,
sitting there
for
in the
sure.
bank.
Yeah. That, I
Well,
got you.
it will be. The ESSER 2.0 has to be officially approved by the state. Once
Right.
it's officially approved, we can draw that.
But that's,
They have it on the things they kicked back on, that clawback was not one of them. That's pretty much, we're gonna get it.
so it's 307 we are gonna get back. I guess, we can count that as money in the pocket, correct?
You could, and what will happen is if we get it back before June 30th, it will go into the fund balance, and so you'll just draw from fund balance for the purpose of this budgeting, but their fund balance will be $300,000 higher, so it wouldn't matter, it would wash out.
All right, does anybody else got anything? At 6 o'clock, we're gonna do this again.
I got something I'd like to say, and yeah, I like the idea about giving the teachers some more money to run their classrooms. What about if we ask the teacher if she's got X amount of kids, we budgeted $2 a head, or $3 a
That's
head.
what that is.
That's what
It's
I
a
know.
dollar.
It's $1. And then let that teacher, you know, you always trying to figure out how to divide it out to, but each classroom, each teacher.
Oh, no, this ain't each, this is just
Art.
art.
You're talking about more than art. I mean,
Yeah, I'm talking about straight across.
Oh, Lord, I don't think that.
Well, I mean,
That'd be a
It'd be
lot of
double
money.
that, you'd figure $2 for art, because every kid goes in art. So you'd figure $2, and then you give a classroom teacher $1, and the art teacher would get $1.
Every high school kid would count 5 times.
Yep.
Middle school kids would count, what, 4 times, 5 times
Well,
each?
Well, just give them $1. Their homeroom,
They start-
just count as
They
homeroom.
start changing classes.
It'd be homeroom only, give them $1. You
I
can do
understand
extra
what you're
deductions
saying
there.
now, yeah, I didn't think about that.
Still a good idea. if you can
Well, I
afford it.
mean, if we got 8,000 kids and that'd be,
Next
So-
Monday, something.
$16,000 and divide that $16,000 in between each, you know, we got each teacher. We're basing it on the kids,
You know,
not the teacher, but I mean, it's the
so
kid.
due to COVID, it would be a nice thing to think about using one-time funds to do that for the beginning of next year. I know it'd be great to do it every year, but just that thought right there would just be a good morale booster and gesture from the board to do that at the beginning of this year to say, here's, you know, a little extra money.
Okay.
We need to be
Monday, next Monday, 4:30. Bring your notes. And, yeah, I think so, but,
I do too.
yeah,
It's just gonna be busy.
yeah.
Jerry? Dr. Boyd, do you have any comments? This is gonna be your budget to spend, so.
No, sir, I just appreciate the opportunity to listen. I'll process and share
If you
comments.
know of any miraculous way we could find out what $2.5 million, call me tomorrow.
Find that seed, plant that tree.
Well said, well said.
All right,
Well, I've got the manure to go around that tree.
Yeah, well, that's true.
with that said, we need to adjourn. Oh, God.